In rural Maryland in the spring of 1813, a baby girl named Anna Murray was born, the first of her siblings to come into the world free from slavery. Her parents, Bambara and Mary Murray, had themselves been emancipated just weeks earlier, and unlike their 7 older children who had been born enslaved, Anna and her younger brothers and sisters would grow up legally free. Yet freedom in a slaveholding state was tenuous. Anna's family lived under laws that restricted the movements and rights of free black people, and kidnapping into bondage was a constant danger. From a young age, Anna learned to be resourceful and independent. At 17, craving independence, she left her parents' home and struck out on her own. She moved to Baltimore and found work as a domestic servant for a wealthy family, saving her wages and establishing herself as a laundress and housekeeper. In Baltimore, Anna became part of a thriving community of free black Americans who, despite oppressive laws, built their own churches, schools, and social circles. It was in this circle that Anna first encountered a tall, passionate young ship caulker named Frederick Bailey, later known to the world as Frederick Douglass. In the words of their daughter Rosetta, they met at the base of a mountain of wrong and oppression, one smarting under the manifold hardships as a slave, the other, in many ways, suffering from the effects of such a system. Anna's poise and determination made a deep impression on Frederick. As an enslaved laborer, nearly all his earnings were claimed by his owner, but in Anna he saw a vision of what life could be like if free. Her very presence, a free woman earning her own way, inspired in him a longing for liberty. Before long, the two fell in love, bound by a shared dream of freedom. That dream soon spurred action. In 1838, Frederick decided to attempt a daring escape from slavery, and Anna Murray became his indispensable partner in the plan. For weeks leading up to the attempt, Anna quietly prepared. She sewed a sailor's uniform for Frederick as a disguise and provided him with a crucial document, a free seaman's protection certificate borrowed from a friend. She also gathered every dollar she could spare to fund his escape, even selling one of her treasured feather beds to add to her savings. The 3 weeks prior to the escape were busy and anxious weeks for Anna, Rosetta later wrote, describing how her mother willingly shared the greater part of her earnings so that the man she loved, quote, might gain the freedom he yearned to possess. On the 3rd of September 1838, Frederick, dressed in the sailor's clothes Anna had provided, and boarded a northbound train. With Anna's money, he purchased a ticket to Philadelphia, slipping out of Maryland and out of bondage. After a tense journey by rail and ferry, he arrived safely in New York City as a free man in disguise. No sooner had Frederick secured his freedom than he sent word back for Anna to join him. She dropped everything, packed up her belongings, including linens, dishes, a feather bed, and a trunk full of clothing, and traveled north to reunite with him. On the 15th of September 1838, the two were married in the New York home of abolitionist David Ruggles, with a free black minister presiding. Anna wore a new plum-coloured silk dress as her wedding gown, which Rosetta recalled as looking very fine to her child's eyes. The newlyweds initially adopted the surname Johnson to help elude slave catchers, but upon moving further north to Massachusetts, they took the last name Douglass. In the whaling port of New Bedford, Massachusetts, Anna and Frederick Douglass began their life together in freedom. Anna had arrived in New Bedford ahead of her husband, using the funds she had saved to rent a modest home and furnish it entirely with her own household goods. Once Frederick joined her, they scraped by on meagre earnings. Anna took in laundry and worked as a seamstress, while Frederick found work as a labourer in a local brass foundry and later as a caulker on the docks. Despite long hours of toil, the young couple threw themselves into the abolitionist cause that had brought them together. Frederick began attending anti-slavery meetings and honing his skills as an orator and writer, quickly gaining attention with his eloquent accounts of slavery's horrors. Meanwhile, Anna quietly made her own contributions. She joined the Boston Female Anti-Slavery Society and opened their New Bedford home as a welcoming haven for fellow abolitionists traveling through. Between 1839 and 1849, Anna gave birth to 5 children: Rosetta, Louis, Frederick Jr., Charles, and Annie, 4 of them during the New Bedford years. Life was not easy. Frederick's work as an abolitionist did not yet provide a steady income, and the family often struggled financially. Anna helped make ends meet by learning shoemaking in addition to her laundry work, all while raising their growing family. In 1845, Frederick Douglass published his autobiography, a move that brought him renown and risk. As a high-profile fugitive slave, he faced the threat of recapture, so later that year he departed for England to ensure his safety and to continue speaking against slavery abroad. He would remain overseas for 2 years. Back in Massachusetts, Anna was left to care for their 4 young children alone. She persevered through this challenging period with remarkable fortitude. Her daughter Rosetta wrote of those years, "It was then that mother struggled to maintain the family amid much that would dampen the courage of many a young woman of today." Friends in the anti-slavery community in Massachusetts took note of Anna's unwavering dedication and, quote, recognized her sterling qualities, offering moral support as she anxiously awaited her husband's return. Every day, Anna kept the house together, a testament to her strength and love, while wondering if Frederick would return. Return he did. In 1847, Frederick Douglass came back from Britain, his freedom having been legally secured by English supporters, and reunited with his family. With his fame as an abolitionist speaker growing, he decided to move the family to a larger city that was a hub of anti-slavery activism, Rochester, New York. There, the Douglasses quickly established a new home that became a beacon of freedom in its own right. Anna made their house in Rochester into a headquarters for the Underground Railroad, a secret network aiding enslaved people escaping to Canada. Fugitives knew they could find shelter, food, and a clean bed in the Douglass home thanks to Anna's tireless hospitality. Rosetta recalled, "It was no unusual occurrence for the mother to be called up at all hours of the night to prepare supper for a hungry lot of fleeing humanity." The Douglass home also hosted numerous abolitionist allies, black and white, American and European, who visited or lodged with the family while plotting the next steps in the fight against slavery. Anna occasionally accompanied Frederick on short lecture trips, but more often she stayed in Rochester to keep things straight at home. In truth, her life in Rochester was as active and self-sacrificing for the anti-slavery cause as ever, even though the social atmosphere there was less welcoming to her than the close-knit Massachusetts community she had known. Only a few friends in Rochester truly came to know Anna's warm and discerning nature. In 1851, Frederick Douglass began publishing the North Star newspaper out of Rochester, and Anna contributed behind the scenes, even persuading her husband to train their sons as typesetters for the paper, giving them useful skills and a role in the struggle. The 1850s were tumultuous. In 1859, after the fiery abolitionist John Brown staged an armed raid on Harper's Ferry, Frederick was unjustly suspected of complicity. To avoid arrest, he fled to Canada and then England for several months, leaving Anna and the children anxiously behind. The following year brought heartbreak. In 1860, their youngest daughter Annie fell ill and died at just 10 years old. Anna's health, already worn down by years of relentless work and worry, grew fragile after Annie's death. Yet even as she mourned, history marched forward. The Civil War erupted, and 2 of Anna's sons, Lewis and Charles Douglass, enlisted in the Union Army's 1st Black Regiment, the 54th Massachusetts Infantry, to help defeat the slave-holding Confederacy. Anna bid her sons farewell with pride and trepidation as they went to fight for the freedom of their people. She lived to see the Union's victory and the abolition of American slavery in 1865, the realization of the dream that had guided her entire life's work. Even after emancipation, Anna continued to support Frederick's efforts for equality, now including the push for black civil rights and women's suffrage. But the burdens of the past did not disappear. In 1872, the Douglasses' Rochester home, lovingly expanded over the years to shelter escaping slaves and host reform meetings, was ravaged by fire. It was very likely an act of arson aimed at one of the nation's most prominent black families. The blaze destroyed nearly all of their possessions, including thousands of dollars worth of goods and the only complete set of Frederick's newspapers and writings, precious records lost to history. Facing this devastation, Anna and Frederick decided it was time for another new start. They moved to Washington, D.C., where Frederick had secured a federal appointment, and the family settled into a hilltop house in the capital's Anacostia neighborhood. By now, Anna was approaching her 60s, and her health was in decline. In Washington, she maintained her role as the steady backbone of the household, now aided by her adult daughter, Rosetta, as well as other relatives and grandchildren. Even as her strength waned, Anna remained, as always, devoted to her family and quietly proud of how far they had come. In the spring of 1882, Anna Murray Douglass suffered a series of strokes that left her bedridden. After decades of ceaseless labour and caring for others, she could only lie still as her family tended to her. Rosetta recalled, although perfectly helpless, she insisted from her sickbed to direct her home affairs. Then on August 4th, 1882, Anna passed away at the age of 69. At her funeral, friends and family reflected on the remarkable life of this woman who had never sought acclaim, yet had done so much. Unlettered though she was, there was a strength of character and of purpose that won for her the respect of the noblest and best, Rosetta wrote in eulogy. Initially buried in Washington, D.C., Anna's remains were later reinterred in Rochester, New York, where she now rests beside Frederick Douglass at Mount Hope Cemetery. Anna Murray Douglass's name may not be as well known as her husband's, but her legacy is profound. Frederick Douglass himself gave his wife scant mention in his own autobiographies. One scholar observed that he made his life story, quote, a sort of political diorama in which she had no role, but those who knew the truth ensured that Anna's contributions would be remembered. In 1900, Rosetta Douglass Sprague published My Mother as I Recall Her, one of the few works devoted to her mother's life. Without Anna's unwavering support, Frederick might never have escaped from slavery or achieved his great stature as an abolitionist leader. She was the quiet force behind the scenes, the anchor at home that allowed a national freedom movement to flourish.